Hello everyone, welcome back to what will be the first of a couple videos going over the vastness of Dark Tower. This isn't quite that, but I will be debunking various crappy arguments that have been thrown towards Pennywise as an attempt to slander the verse. You'll typically see these used in versus debates, like with Freddy Krueger, and I doubt these people have actually read the books for reasons you'll understand later on. And are only familiar with the film adaptations of Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård, which will be absent from this video. My two guesses as to why this seems to be becoming more and more prevalent would be A, assholes who power skill versus just because they're powerful, just just to say that they solo the favorite characters of other people, basically anyone that likes instant death. Or B, goobers who don't know what they're doing and fuck up everything horribly. If you're curious about everything I have to say about the Dark Tower cosmology sooner than later, then uh, you can check out my cosmology blog, which will be linked in the description. Now, let's get into it. Starting starting off with perhaps the most common piece of slander, Pennywise losing to the Losers Club. People tend to bring this up and say that the avatar and true form of Pennywise cannot be strong at all because he lost to quote unquote normal humans. This debunk of mine ties into numerous other ones like Pennywise being weak to belief and whatnot. So yeah. The simple fact of the matter is that these quote unquote regular humans were being aided by a higher power that exists external to them. So while they may be regular humans on their own, they simply aren't with this amplification, which typically occurs when they are faced with Pennywise. Not only does this protection from a higher entity give them supernatural abilities that are otherwise inexplicable, such as when the Losers Club were out hunting Pennywise, but were able to sense that Mike was in danger of a murderer sent after him. So they cyclically sent literal strength to him, allowing Mike to fight off the set killer when he otherwise wouldn't have. It also gives straightforward boosts in physical power, such as when Mike was defending himself from Pennywise in his big bird form, where he was throwing broken tiles at him. Initially, this barely did anything to Pennywise, but once the amplification came into effect, Mike was able to seriously damage Pennywise with the broken tiles. Mike himself says that he can feel a force helping him throw the tiles harder, allowing him to damage Pennywise more than he otherwise would have. This amplification is the real reason why the Losers Club were able to damage Pennywise as well as they did in the books. Not because the not because Pennywise with the Deadlights were fodder or anything akin to that. They were receiving boons from a higher power, and this similarly explains their inexplicable ability to damage Pennywise with their beliefs. Pennywise has been slaughtering humans for actual generations at this point, so it wouldn't make sense for these 6 to 7 random dudes to be able to fight back against Pennywise without this explanation. To people who genuinely argue these, let me ask you a simple question. If Pennywise is truly weak to general belief, but has come across literally hundreds of humans across the ages, then why is he having this problem just with the Losers Club? Why is he already? Why isn't he already aware of this ability, this weakness, if it was just something that all humans can potentially do? This is something that is only occurring with the Losers Club, so they're obviously special for some reason. Pennywise remarks on the speciality of the Losers Club, saying they have a mystical talisman quality, and he even speculates that they are agents of the quote-unquote other himself, which is indeed true because during one of their confrontations with the Deadlights, the other was confirmed to be there behind the cosmic scenes, helping the Losers Club as they were doing their ritual of Chud. This other is most likely Gan from the Mythos of the Dark Tower series, and is the supreme creator of the entire verse. The other, as described in the book, is said to be a force beyond everything, a power beyond all power, and the creator of all things, including the Deadlights and Maturin themselves. Gan likely deserves his own video, but just know that he is very strong and has a history of aiding people against evil forces, and may or may not qualify for Gewsbumpz Wiki's Tier 0, so no wonder why Pennywise lost. Now on to something that requires a little less of an explanation, but is still pretty egregious, all things considered. Some people think that the Deadlights died when the Avatar was killed during the events of the original book. This isn't true, and is a misconception that somehow misses trivia that has been known since 1994 at least. People normally cite this as as the Deadlights dying. Not only is this from the limited perspective of a human from Earth, but this can just as easily be interpreted as the Deadlights disconnecting themselves from the Avatar. This kind of has to be the case because in books that were published after it and explicitly taking place after the events of it, we see that the Deadlights are still alive and well. In Insomnia, the Crimson King summons and uses the Deadlights to ascend up the Dark Tower, blatantly showing that they are still alive. But even the Avatar, or a variation of the Avatar, is still out there on Earth. In the Tommyknockers, we see the Clown Avatar in a sewer drain, and while this can be considered a hallucination, the next one and Dreamcatcher simply can't, and pretty objectively shows that Pennywise is still alive. There is this whole scene where the characters stumble upon a memorial thing made by the Losers Club, with the top of it being defiled with spray paint, reading quote-unquote Pennywise lives. For fuck's sakes, the Deadlights even serve as the main antagonist for another Stephen King book called Later, which came out in 2021. So yeah, the Deadlights did not die during the events of it. It's kind of laughable how ignorant this argument is, with it missing this much. The Tommyknockers came out in 1987, Insomnia came out in 1994, and Dreamcatcher came out in 2001. This is trivia that is nearly 40 goddamn years old. This is bullshit that literally any wiki can tell you, so these people really don't have an excuse here. Also, no, the bill did not weaken the Deadlights by biting its tongue. Doesn't make him weaker or nullify his powers or anything. Not sure where Galaxy in that one video got it from. Even if this is a factor, Bill was only able to do this thanks to the ritual Chud and the aforementioned higher power amp. Now onto another big one. Some people like to downplay the Deadlights and Maturin by saying that Maturin choked to death on a galaxy or two, but this can easily be explained away. The first thing to note is that this isn't an established event. Rather, it comes from a clearly disingenuous statement from the Deadlights themselves, who, at this point in the book, see the Losers Club as an actual threat to it, and has been trying to make them leave it alone. So Pennywise is just trying to bullshit Bill here. People would then point to this scene where we supposedly see Maturin's corpse, just kind of ignoring that one of Pennywise's main abilities is his ability to create realistic illusions, false images and shit. So we can easily chalk this up as an illusion made by Pennywise to really sell the idea that Bill is hopeless and he should back away while he still can. What really doesn't make sense here is Maturin actually dying, because if he did genuinely die, that would have disastrous effects for all of existence, considering the Dark Tower he holds on his back. If Maturin died, and all of existence would go with him. Like that's like part of the Crimson King's plan to destroy everything. Like he's gonna like try to kill all the Beam Guardians who sustain all of existence. Also, just doesn't make any logical sense considering Maturin's size. Even setting aside any outerversal scaling, who Maturin at minimum puked up the entire universe. Our universe, as it stands today, has been estimated to contain 2 trillion galaxies. A bit more than just the 2 galaxies that Deadlight said that he choked on. Like, hell, like, individual universes in Dark Tower are infinitely large, so this shit just doesn't make any sense no matter how you slice it. Also, another big one, albeit this one is a pretty easy one to make. I was guilty of this too before, and it is something widely said by Stephen King fans. A lot of people say that the Macroverse and Todash space are the same place, and then use this to say that Pennywise exists within the Dark Tower and other stupid things like that. These 2 places have been referred to as Todash space or Todash darkness, but they are 2 very different places, and we can tell this from the cosmological positions. For the sake of this explanation, I'll be referring to one as Todash space and one as the Macroverse. Todash space is basically the void that exists between all worlds that exist within the Dark Tower, with it being likened to as a space between the inner and outer walls of a house. It far exceeds these worlds in size, but is still ultimately something that is confined to the Dark Tower. The Macroverse, on the other hand, is something that far exceeds the Prim in size, the Prim being a seed of magic that was used by Gan to create the Dark Tower and encompasses it. Furthermore, the Macroverse is where Maturin lives, who holds all of existence, like all of the Dark Tower on his back, or within his mind, literally, like naturally meaning that Maturin isn't confined to the Dark Tower, and the Deadlights shouldn't be any different. Like we see Maturin in his full glory in it as Bill and Richie are being taken to the Deadlights, obviously meaning that this Macroverse isn't bound by the Dark Tower at all. You could theoretically make an argument that Todash space is an offshoot of the Macroverse, like a distant fragment of it that was made immeasurably weaker by Gan when he made everything, but that is completely baseless. Now onto probably one of, if not the most egregious myth out there. The idea that the Deadlights are just universe level plus, as in they are 4th dimensional. From 2014 to 2019, Deadlights on Gewsbumpz used to be listed as low universal plus before someone competent came along and revamped him to universal. You can still find some copies of this old scaling like on Omniversal Battlefield Wiki, but otherwise this is something that has been long moved on from Gewsbumpz Wiki. You'd think people would progress beyond that dumb outdated meta too, right? Well, some people haven't, and there's a not zero chance of at least one person bringing this up, so I'm going to shut down this shit show. I'll be using the last iteration of Wiki's Pennywise circle that had low TIC Deadlights and the Omniversal Battlefield Wiki that has relatively been stagnant since 2018 as a reference. Quote, natural enemy of Maturin who created the universe on accident during a stomach ache and eventually killed him, and quote, the natural predator of Maturin who puked the universe out from a stomach ache. As I said earlier, Maturin just doesn't die at all during the events of it, and Pennywise sure as hell didn't kill Maturin or anything like that. How the Deadlights describe Maturin's death in the first place is that he choked some galaxies, like nothing on murder. Also, Pennywise isn't really scaled to Maturin outside of just being on the same general level of existence. Otherwise, Maturin is actually explicitly said to be far more powerful than the Deadlights. So the idea of Pennywise being the quote-unquote natural predator or anything like that is entirely baseless and contradictory to the story. It exists within the Deadlights, which are infinite in size. This is technically true, but there is more to the Deadlights than just this. On Omniverse Battlefield Wiki, it is said that the Deadlights are an entire universe, which is also just completely baseless. Quote, lives in Todash space, the space between universes. This comes from the aforementioned myth that Pennywise exists in Todash space, which I already explained earlier in this video. Instead of repeating myself, I'll bring up this statement from the drawing of the three, where Todash space is said to exist beyond all physicality such physical world. So, if anything, Todash space and subsequently Pennywise, if we go with this, would be outerversal. Physically embodies a parallel universe in its space-time. As I said before, the Deadlights being their own universe is baseless. The next point I'm gonna bring up shows that the Deadlights are something wholly different from universes too, but I'll save that for later. As for the space-time bit, the avatar that most closely resembles the Deadlights is said to exist beyond time and space entirely, so there would be no reason for the Deadlights themselves to be pure space-time. Like, it is meant to be an act, like, at least like a loose representation of what the Deadlights are, so the Deadlights absolutely shouldn't just be like raw space-time or anything like that. But the views the universe as an egg. This one just kind of this is just a kind of useless statement that doesn't really appeal to any specific tier. Like any character from 3-A to tier 0 would quote unquote view the universe as an egg. This is more so supporting evidence, if anything. Lastly, quote unquote, transcends space and time without a physical form. This is just flat out downplay that doesn't elaborate on what the space time that is the Deadlights are transcending. If you're familiar with the Dark Tower cosmology at all, you would know that there is an infinite hierarchy of universes, where higher up universes see lower universes, where higher up universes transcend lower universes, with the ridiculous size difference being compared to the lower universes being a mere atom to an infinitely large universe that are the higher up universes. This hierarchy of worlds is repeated a lot in numerous of the stories like Black House and the Talisman, so the space and time that's being transcended here is actually an infinite dimensional hierarchy. Alongside this, but all the mentions of universes are likely universes that are part of this hierarchy, so they should be far beyond just low universal plus, which is about just fourth dimensional stuff. I think I made the point clear. The Deadlights being just universal plus is an absolute joke of an idea that should have been left behind decades ago. If you see anyone arguing this, then show them at least this part of the video. Also, since I'm here, might as well tackle 5D Dark Tower. All of Dark Tower being only 5D is an absolute joke. All the arguments I've seen of it comes from misunderstanding the aforementioned hierarchy of universes and without really explaining away all the statements that make it and the rest of cosmology impressive. Even if we do accept this, there's a shit ton of things that is between the multiverse and the Deadlights, so the Deadlights, let alone the multiverse as a whole, wouldn't be just fifth dimensional. So I went over a lot of debunks here. So how strong are the Deadlights truly? Well, to get the full idea of that, you're just gonna have to wait for my revised Dark Tower cosmology video. But for the sake of a somewhat satisfying conclusion, I'll be going over how the powerful the Deadlights are, just exclusively using the resources from the original novel It. The Deadlights are the edge of all of existence, including the Macroverse, the outlands of all lands. The Macroverse itself is described as a place where direction does not exist. Direction, of course, being synonymous with spatial dimensions, which is pretty much what they are. So, with this statement alone, the Macroverse is outerversal, but this gets more consistent. The Deadlights have been described as a formless, unshaped being in the same paragraph, and is described as described as being non-geometrical, as in it lacks any geometric shapes. Lastly, the avatar that most closely resembles the Deadlights have been described as a spire beyond time and space, obviously meaning that the Deadlights themselves should be transcended to time and space. So pretty solidly outerversal, I'll honestly never understand how people can downplay Pennywise to any less than this. It only gets even more consistent and robust once we start including the other books, which at that point it easily becomes hydroversal. Hell, me showing you these scans is already more than what most people who argue like universal deadlights or fifth dimensional door tower will ever show you. So yeah. Anyway, that will be it for this video. I can I can't tell you when my next video will come out because not even I know. I have a job and other responsibilities beyond making videos, so yeah, thanks to the few patient for the patient few in my audience. If I can say at least one thing, one final like lesson that you should walk away from with this video, trust the professionals of the verse, like the people who actually know and scale the verse, and just don't listen to some random shithead on Quora or Reddit. Anyway, goodbye everyone.